You know, in the world of politics, oftentimes an elected official suffers a defeat. Sometimes it's a devastating defeat. Sometimes it's a humiliating defeat. But last night in Chicago, Lori Lightfoot, the mayor, she suffered a humiliating, devastating, horrific, once in a lifetime, historic defeat. I mean, this was ugly. 86% of the voters said no mas to Lori Lightfoot running for reelection as mayor of that town. Joining us now to discuss, analyze, and maybe even do a little bit of a victory lap, Amy Jacobson, radio host on Chicago's Morning Answer, WIND, part of the Salem family. Amy, thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, last night she gave her concession speech quite early. Some of us thought that she would contest the results of the election, possibly because we still have 60,000 plus mail in ballots to count. But she seemed very humbled. She thanked the people of Chicago. She acted in the weeks and days leading up to that this was not going to happen. She kept telling the media, kept telling reporters, myself and I included, that it's going to be a two-person race between her and Paul Vallis. And as it turned out, that didn't happen. Brandon Johnson trounced her by 20,000 plus votes. So she brought this upon herself, though.
Yeah.
She just would have attitude towards everyone. For example, during the Columbus statue debacle, she told the Italian Americans that she has the biggest schlong in Chicago, but she used a different word. Very classy, the tough guy all the time. She plowed through communications directors. And she told reporters at one point in time, I remember asking her, why can't I talk to you? Why can't I interview you on her 2-year anniversary? And she said, I can't talk to you because you're white and I'm only talking to Black reporters.
Yeah.
So it's a string of debacles, and it was her attitude and her arrogance that I think that she was more humble. She could have definitely made the runoff, but she didn't do it.
Yeah, and people should recognize she came in third place. There will be a runoff. I mean, honestly, it's a nonpartisan election, but really, it's which Democrat do you want at this point in Chicago? And the two who have made it to the finals, that election is on April 4th. I do want to get into those two in a moment, but all the things you're describing about Lori Lightfoot, I think people, especially in Chicago, New York, some big cities, they're okay with a bigger than life character, somebody who brings a big personality to the table. That's part of the thing when you're the mayor of a big city like that. The problem is that's all she did. All she did was the big talk and the profanity, but she didn't do the basics like run the city. I mean, Chicago is so far worse off than it was 4 years ago, Amy.
And it started with the George Floyd riots when she gave a stand down order to Chicago police. And we had to sit there and watch as people rented U-Hauls and pulled up to designer stores and just took whatever they want. And then the next night we had another riot and another riot. And we've had smash and grabs since then, and nothing has been done. She
Yeah.
chastised she blamed them and said, well, this is your fault because I told you to hire more security, private security. And that's why you got robbed. So she's a defund policer, never has really backed police officers, and she just brought this upon herself. And the city, I don't know if you're familiar with Chicago, but Michigan Avenue, there are so many boarded up stores. State Street is deserted. The last bastion of hope was Old Navy, and they pulled out, and so there's hardly any stores or shopping at all. And to be honest, the suburbanites aren't coming downtown anyway. No one's
Right.
coming downtown or to go catch them, see the theater. And if they do, matinees so that they can get out of town before it gets dark.
So I can hear people all across the country watching this right now, Amy, saying, good, Chicago gets what they deserve. That's what they get for continuing to vote for the same kind of politician over and over again. And let's face it, with Lori Lightfoot, all the headlines afterward it had nothing to do with her agenda, had nothing to do with her policies, had nothing to do with her competence. All the headlines were first openly gay, Black, lesbian woman mayor. I mean that she checked boxes, and look, this is what you get if that's all your politics cares about. I mean, how are they wrong?
Well, she came out and said, I'm a triple threat. She wanted to be called triple threat: Black, female, lesbian. And she never really got beyond that. And
Yeah.
I think she was in ed to begin with. She'd never been a politician before. She was a federal prosecutor and she worked at a high profile law firm, but never in a position of power like this. And she abused it. And during COVID, if you saw, I mean, she shut down 18 miles of our lakefront. at least in New York, de Blasio, you guys have the beaches to go to. You could get arrested if you tried to go swimming. So all of us tried to work our way around it, getting up at 4 a.m. to go to the lakefront to, to go to the dog beach or do things that we had to do to survive. But it was just absolute chaos.
Yeah.
And she didn't understand, our kids, my kids go to Chicago Public School, and we had 8 days of learning, 8 in 2020 to 2021. That's it.
Yeah.
When the rest of the states around us were, back in school Monday through Friday. So she really didn't help parents on that angle at all. And she sent her kids to private Catholic schools.
Of course.
So her kids, ours
That's
were.
right. It's what they do. Listen, I got to tell you, I don't envy you guys your weather, but here in DC, I currently envy you that your voters at least said enough is enough. We can't keep doing the same thing. Washington, D.C. is dealing with some of the same incompetence with our mayor and with our district council, the same crime problems, the same stores that won't reopen after the riots. We painted Black Lives Matter across the street in front of the White House. And yet our voters, we haven't figured it out. I wonder, what is it about the Chicago voters that finally said enough? Because most people didn't see this coming. Most people thought that, yeah, it's terrible, but they'll just keep voting the same way. What do you think was the tipping point here for the people of Chicago?
It was her attitude that was enough. Even the Black communities, like, don't talk to me that way. She was so condescending. But I have to tell you, we've replaced her with somebody worse. Brandon Johnson is a full-out Marxist. And that's why I'm not feeling victorious today. I was actually sad. I was looking forward to a runoff between her and Paul Vallis. But Brandon Johnson he works, are you ready for this? He currently works for the CTU as a community organizer, and they pay him $100,000.
Oh, no.
So it's the scary part. And I couldn't even sleep last night because I was so upset. If he wins, the CTU is going to be on the 5th floor of City Hall. Now, he will cater.
This is the Chicago Teachers Union. In fact, we just did a focus on Local 1, the documentary about that teachers union, how powerful they are and how they act like basically an organized crime unit. He is a former Chicago school teacher. He's backed by the teachers union. The other guy, Mr. Vallis, he's the former CEO of Chicago schools, brought in by former Mayor Daley to sort of try to fix problems. He's also a career politician. So it's kind of a pick your poison situation here, right? But you're saying Vallis is the better choice?
Vallis is the much, much better choice. He's going to be tough on crime. He's going to hire police officers. Brandon Johnson has already said, no, hiring police officers isn't the answer. He wants more mental health experts to respond to domestic violence calls because, that's going to end well. But Paul Vallis, when he was the CEO of CPS, he left with a $1 billion surplus, but he also closed down failing schools. And we never had a strike when he was the CEO of CPS. I've been through 5 strikes with other mayors, and, he's the one. He also negotiated the FOP Lodge 7 police contract. He did that for free. So he's a negotiator, and he's got a proven record. Yes, he's a Democrat, but he is the safest choice for us. And he also believes in school choice. So that, if there's one issue that conservatives want to hang their hat on or say, you know what, I'm going to.
Absolutely. And Amy, is it very interesting that both of the final candidates here for mayor have a background in education. It tells you what a winning issue that is. We'll watch it. Either way, either one of these candidates might not be the answer, but we know that they'll be talked about and analyzed on Chicago's Morning Answer. See what I did there? It's a little bit of a connection. Amy Jacobson, WIND, from Salem Radio Network. I'm Larry O'Connor. You're watching O'Connor Tonight on Salem News.